Jennifer, it seems to me Republicans got the better of the deal to avert the shutdown last week. But this week the debate is shifting toward 2012 budget and beyond. More difficult terrain for Republicans because they're talking about big changes in Medicare and Medicaid. How do they see the challenge ahead of them?
Well, I actually think that the dynamic may play out very similarly to the one we saw over the short-term solution, the spending plan for the rest of this fiscal year. If you listen to Republicans, particularly the Freshmen and the more conservative factions of their party, they say the fight is going to remain the same. We want substantial changes to Medicaid and Medicare, and we want to continue to cut more spending.
In the 2011 budget debate, there was an implicit bottom line, which was we are really going to try very hard to keep the government open. Is the implicit bottom line of this debate, despite the threats, is we really are going to raise the debt ceiling?
I think if you talk to the vast majority of Republicans, they would understand the need to do that because they would understand the implications on the capital markets, America's ability to borrow, and so forth. But I think you will see a lot of outspoken members talk about their expectations and their goals and their requirements to vote that way.
Well, Wall Street's a huge complication because you've got investors saying it would be crazy not to raise the debt limit. But what do Republicans say about the way they got hammered in 1995-96 for trying to cut back Medicare and for President Bush's attempt to partially privatize Social Security in 2005? Those would seem to stand for the danger of really pressing hard for big changes on benefits affecting seniors.
Right. Well, I would say two things about 95 vis-a-vis this class of Republican freshmen particularly. One is that a lot of them were not in government. A lot of them were in college. I mean, there was a whole variety of experiences that had nothing to do with serving in Washington. They think this is just a completely different time. They don't relate to it in the way someone like Speaker John Boehner and others of the more old guard Republicans do.
John Boehner definitely relates to it.
Yes, he relates to it profoundly. The other piece of it is that I think Republicans have the debt crisis as ballast for their argument now, that this is a different time, that the fiscal situation is different, that the globalization of the economy is completely different than it was in 95, and they have more to work with.
So does that mean the Republicans are going to pass through the Budget Committee this week, the Ryan plan, without much difficulty, and will it then pass through the House easily?
I would imagine that whatever Paul Ryan has presented to the Republicans will pass through the House easily, simply because there's a lot of support for it before there were even any details out. And Paul Ryan is a real cult figure in this class. They're very, very impressed with what he has to say about entitlements.
Now, the president's going to give a speech on Wednesday where he really joins this argument in a way that he hasn't in the last several months. How do people on the Hill see the potential for the president's involvement to shift the parameters of the debate?
I imagine that Republicans will be on the tack before the speech even happens, because they'll be looking at what he presented for his 2012 budget, where they say he didn't do substantial or anything much to attack entitlement programs. So I imagine he's starting from a place from their view of too little.
The president, as I see it, is going to open, in essence, a negotiation with Republicans, but it's not at all clear that the negotiation can or will be concluded this year or even next year.
I don't think Republicans would say there's not going to be a resolution. I think that's what history could suggest is the possibility. I think Republicans will stick to the same line of thinking and the same presentation of their line of thinking that they did during the fight to keep the government open. This is what we want, and we're not going to lower our bar. And then the bar quietly gets lowered because, in fact, they only control 1/3 of this process.
Well, the one thing we do know is there is going to be an election in 2012, and somebody's going to have the upper hand in this debate that's accelerating this week. Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.